right, here we are in Grammar eLecture for Chapter 2. So in Chapter 2, we're going to take what we learned in Chapter 1, we're going to add a little bit to it, just a little bit. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to add some of the nouns in second declension. We're going to review the nouns we've covered. We're going to add a new case that we can play with. The accusative is an object phrase. We're going to talk about prepositions. We're going to increase our knowledge of prepositions. So the nouns we're going to add today are what's called the second variant or 2i. You don't really need them, except you need them. Because the puer, except for the nominative, look, it looks just like second declension. Puerum, puero, puero, pueri, pueri, pueros, pueris, pueris, puerorum. And 2i, well, that's second declension with an I there. So instead of glados, it's gladios, gladium, gladio, gladio, gladii, gladii, gladios, gladiis, gladiis, gladiorum. These nouns are not so essential. It's just that you have to understand how they fall into the part of it. And it's useful for some of the nouns that we'll see, just a couple things. So remember, when you deal with creation of the nouns, you have here your stem. Now, a stem, think of it as a tree. A leaf will tell you what the kind of tree it is until you get up real close. So the stem is like the tree, like what doesn't change. And to that, in the first declension, you add the ahs. Second declension, as well, you add the ums and the us's, etc. The only thing that's different is puer. Bellum, it's second neuter, and then a consul. So it's the same forms we learned last time. We're only adding these two in the center. And so with your trusty highlighter, because it's good to see forms, you have nice long I's, you have some nice M's. Oh, I love those singular accusative M's. And we're going to play with the accusative. We have the ablative and the dative, which you only know the ablative so far. You have the long I of the genitive. You have the as and the os. And it should actually be farther, too. This should actually go to gladio, puer, os, and gladios, shouldn't it now? And then, of course, aurum, is, etc. Rather straightforward on all these forms. So what we're now learning, though, is we're going to be learning a new case. And it looks, we've memorized it. Now we have to play with it. So, and that new case is, of course, the accusative. So here we have the accusative. At this stage, it ends in a nice M, right? And the accusative will tell you, in this case, when it's by itself, it becomes the object phrase. It's who receives the action. So it's rather straightforward. And that accusative can occur anywhere. You don't have to have a special word order. So in this case, we have kibum is accusative, Metella is nominative. So Metella tastes the food, Metella greets the friend or calls the friend, we can say. And we'll take a look at that more closely. So Metella, what case is a short A? Oh, that's nominative. And, Metella is still nominative. How about grumionem? That's accusative, right? And amicum is also accusative. So, piece of cake. Now, the chapter cases, let's figure out what they mean. The biggest thing is, we've talked about cases, and I told you, don't worry about the dative or the genitive, that's indirect object. But now we're going to add the accusative, which is used for an object phrase, and it's used for prepositions. So the subject phrase is what's doing the action, and as you can see right here, Mickey is playing the guitar. That's what's receiving the action of the playing. So it's the object phrase. The direct object of a verb is in the accusative case. The direct object is usually the person or thing which receives the verb. So as the box is being moved, as you have the push, what's getting pushed? That's the object. The subject is the pusher. The object is the pushy. So caecilius, amicus caecilium salutat, the friend, subject phrase, greets caecilius, object phrase. The friend greets Metella. The friend greets Metellam, accusative object phrase. Or the friend also is greeting the canem, the dog. So let's take a look at this analysis. Let's go a little deeper. So here you have a sentence. Amicus servum salutat. Don't worry about the verb. We'll play with those next chapter, but that simply means greets. So who's doing the greeting? Well, we've learned about the nominative subject phrase. The friend is doing the greeting. So the friend is doing the verb. Greeting. Who's getting the greeting? Serum is accusative, no other signals. That means no preposition. Object phrase. It's receiving the action of the greeting, and it is the slave. The friend greets the slave. Now let's talk a little bit about prepositions because we're going to cover it.
These little words we call the busy P's. Preposition. 9 or 10 of them do most all of the work. For, at, over, across. And many others do their job, which is simply to connect their noun or pronoun object to some other word in the sentence. Busy P's, if you please. On the top is where you are. Top relates to where. With a friend you'll travel far. With a friend you'll go. If you try, you know that you can fly over the rainbow. Over the rainbow is where. Busy prepositions, always on the go. Like a bunch of busy bees, floating pollen on the breeze, buzzing over the meadows, beyond the forest, through the trees, into the beehive. Busy, busy bees. Beyond, over, on, through. Busy prepositions, always out in front. On the edges, in the crack, around the corner, from the back, in between the action, stating clearly to your satisfaction the location and direction. Preposition. Though little words they are, they never stand alone. Gathering words behind them, you soon will see how they have grown into a parade. A prepositional phrase with a noun or at least a pronoun bringing up the rear. A little phrase of 2 or 3 or 4 or more words. Prepositions, attention, forward march. Busy prepositions, always on the march. Like a horde of soldier ants, inching bravely forward on the slimmest chance that they might bet. Prepositions. In the air, on the ground, everywhere. The sun sank lower in the west. In the west it sank. And it will rise in the morning and will bring the light of day. You say the sun comes up in the east every day. In the east it rises. Busy prepositions, busy, busy, busy. On the top is where you are. You know that you can.
Over the rainbow. I think that's awful cool. They get a lift from a friend. So a preposition indicates, direction or location or reason. So we've already learned about in up here. Now we're going to add 2 more prepositions. One that goes with the ablative, X, when you're going out of something, or one that's when you're going with the accusative with odd, which is to. So, for example, X plus the ablative, it could also be E. It signifies what's called a source phrase, and it's translated out of, just like the exit sign. They flew from all parts of the forest. The slave walks out of the bedroom. As opposed to odd plus the accusative, which is almost the opposite, but not quite, because you're just marching up to something. Odd takes the accusative, can be translated to or toward, right? He comes to the city. He comes toward the enemy, to or toward, either way. So let's do a little deeper dive. Ambulat, she, here, it walks, odd form, odd plus accusative, limit phrase, to the form. E, willa, it's a shortened form of X, plus the ablative, source phrase, out of the house. He walks to the form, out of the house. So let's take a look of deep dive here. We shall go out of the garden, X plus the ablative. They will travel to the kingdom, odd plus the accusative. So rather straightforward. It's a little adding. So if you didn't get your nouns down last time, now here's your last shot. Then we're going to be adding verbs. So come up with questions. We'll ask them in class, and I look forward to hearing from you and, of course, seeing you.